The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
Oh yes, the UFC is back, which means that UFC Best Bets with myself and Ian Parker is back after a 4-week hiatus from the Octagon. Ian, it felt at times like 8 weeks, but we made it. We have gotten into 2022, and the schedule kicks off in earnest, as the UFC is known to do. They stay busy after that 4-week break. We've got a UFC fight night here in Las Vegas. Great main event, Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze in the featherweight division. Then we move straight to Anaheim, UFC 270. Francis Ngannou taking on Ciryl Gane, Brandon Moreno, and Davison Figueiredo. But before we get to everything 2022, let's take a look back at 2021. We want to thank you, the viewers. I want to thank Ian for making us some money. He had a great year in 2021, and it finished off with the UFC fight night in Vegas. Derek Lewis, Chris Dawkins, look at that, 3-1 on his best bets to finish off the year. Plus, he hit the parlay. Nothing wrong with that, Ian. Nothing wrong with that, dude. And by the way, before we get into this weekend's card, what did you miss more, actually watching the fights or having UFC action? And don't lie to me.
A little bit of both. This break has been very stressful. I really don't understand why the UFC had to put us through this hiatus, but the fact that we're back now, we're going to hit the ground running. But yeah, man, I don't like this break. I don't like having all this time without MMA, the UFC, zero action. It just didn't feel right.
No, it did not feel right. Well, like I said, we are back now, and they have kept you busy, Ian, because this card has seen, last count that I had was 11 cancellations, 11 canceled fights. Obviously, we all know what's going on in the world with the coronavirus is impacting all sports. It's impacted this card as well. So before we really get into this thing in earnest, and you see there the main card on ESPN and ESPN Plus, again, headlined by Calvin Kattar and Giga Chikadze, some good fights that we will be talking about here in a minute. Ian, just real quickly, when you got all these fights that are being canceled and guys changing opponents on short notice, do you tend to get more aggressive or less aggressive? Like, how do you look at a card like this? I mean, obviously, you're scrambling for information, but so are the odds makers. So what is kind of your general idea going into a card like this?
You just got to adapt. You got to be like a true chameleon to the situation. There's a lot of fights where you would have gone one way, and then all of a sudden the odds change. The TJ Brown, Charles Rosa fight is going to be interesting to kind of touch on. Same thing with Brian Kelleher. A lot of people went the other way, and that he went from an underdog to a big favorite. So it's really about just staying on your toes. This is the sport, the world that we're at right now. This is going to probably keep happening. We got to just play the cards that we're dealt. Do as much of the research and the information. Just rely on you and I to make sure we get these right. And I'm pretty confident we will.
All right, well, let's get into this card here. Let's start at the top, man. This is really the meat and potatoes of this card, that main event. Calvin Kattar facing Giga Chikadze. Once again, in 2022, Calvin Kattar is going to start off in the main event of the very first card. He did it last year against Max Holloway. Obviously, that did not go his way. He was a guy that earlier in his career, man, cashed it as a big dog. Now there's a lot more tape on him, a lot more sort of information on Calvin Kattar. Giga Chikadze, 7-fight win streak, karate black belt. He's just on fire right now. I mean, this guy is really sort of the name to be watching here at 145 pounds. Break down this matchup for me and sort of where you think the value is in the line.
Well, let me start off by saying this. I'm a big Calvin Kattar fan. I love his team, the Boston Cartel, a lot of good fighters, great coach over there. However, it's been, not only has it been a year layoff, that fight against Max Holloway, I think he took the most amount of damage any fighter has ever taken. And, when you're coming back to try to, reacclimate, get back into the mix, you want to play into a style that's favorable. For me, this couldn't be a worse matchup for him. He's not someone who utilizes his wrestling. He's not someone that really has much of a threatening ground game. So someone who likes to rely on their striking, he is fighting someone in Giga Chikadze who is a sniper. We've seen Chikadze evolve throughout his career. His first 2 fights were split decision wins. We've seen him kind of get taken down, but his takedown defense has gotten better. His striking, and this guy's confidence is through the roof. I just think for Calvin Kattar, this is a bad matchup, low reward. Even if he were to win this fight against someone who's still considered a high-level prospect, for me, Giga Chikadze, even at these odds, I know our protocol, we don't like to go over minus 200. I just don't see how he loses here. I think that Kattar's wrestling is not much of a threat. Again, I don't know how much of that damage is going to be a toll for him. And just Chikadze striking and that Giga kick, watch out for that kick to the liver. He's going to throw that a bunch of times. And even though you know it's coming, it's so hard to prepare for. So for me, this is Chikadze's time to shine, getting the chance to see him in a main event. I don't need to see it go in the 5 rounds either, but for me, he's going to get this done.
Okay, so obviously listening to everything you say, you love Giga Chikadze in this matchup. I don't think, I can understand all of the reasons why. Here's my one question to you is that I don't like paying for full price for anything, and I know you're the same. If we go through the whole of 2022 and we're paying full price for everything, it's not going to work out for us in the long run, And when I look at Giga Chikadze and what the performance that he's coming off of against Edson Barboza and the performance that Calvin Kattar is coming off of 1 year ago, it just seems too pricey. It seems like there's a potential of it being too pricey, where you got one guy coming off a very bad performance, one guy coming off of an outstanding performance. You look at Giga Chikadze historically in his fights in the UFC, he has not been this tremendously big favorite, and now here he is breaking into the top 5 for the first time, and he's minus 240 favorite. So give me some thoughts on that, Ian. I know that you believe that Giga is going to win this fight, but how do you balance the two and sort of, are we getting any value at this price?
You know what? I really think that we are getting value even at minus 240. And the reason why, Brett, the true honest reason why is because of everything you just said, because he's just breaking into the top 5. He just is coming off the win over Barboza and the Cub Swanson finishes. If he was someone that had fought another top 5 ranked fighter in his division, he'd probably be minus 400. Look, Kattar, a year off is usually not good for anybody. I don't know too many people not named Dominic Cruz that come back from a year layoff off of whether it's damage or injury and are able to perform to their best ability and have a stylistic fight that's favorable to them. I just don't see it here. Chikadze against Barboza, look, the reason why he was even money was because of Barboza's resume, not Chikadze. Cub Swanson, again, Swanson's been fighting on the lower part of the ranked fighters, within the top 15. Obviously that Simmons fight was ridiculous at minus 1,000, but he's worked his way up. And we just keep seeing him getting better and better and more dangerous. And again, because I believe this fight is going to purely stay on the feet, that is why Chikadze gets the win here. To your point, if you're not comfortable laying those type of odds, normally I'm not. I'm just really confident in this pick here. We're going to also put him in our parlay we're going to talk about later, so we're going to get value that way as well.
Okay, the last thing to wrap up this one is you mentioned it a couple times, but I want you to expand on it a little bit more. You said that Calvin's wrestling is not going to be a factor in this fight. You think it's going to be played out on the feet. You also said that he comes from a very smart camp. And Tyson Chartier, he's going to be looking at this matchup, and he's going to be asking himself, do we at least try? Do we at least got to try to take this guy down? I tend to give Giga Chikadze the benefit of the doubt. I think he will have the takedown defense when the time comes. But do you think we will see that tested at all? And what makes you so confident that Calvin, if he does try to wrestle, will be unsuccessful with it?
I just think that Chikadze has fought guys with more unpredictable wrestling. I think Calvin Kattar is going to have to either pressure Chikadze and really take it to him quick. Can't sit back. He can't let Chikadze dictate the pace. That's what Giga has done, and that's what's made him so dangerous. I do think, to your point, though, with Tyson Chartier, listen, the guy knows his stuff. He's one of the best coaches in the game. Wrestling has to be part of this here. Giga off his back. Granted, we've seen an improvement in his skills. I just don't see how on the feet that favors Kattar. And again, it's not like he has that wrestling that's so unpredictable with an outside single or, a real hard double leg that he has been so successful with. So for me, I think Giga's takedown defense is more than good enough for a fight against Calvin Kattar to keep it standing.
Okay, well, as Ian says, we don't normally go with these odds straight at a minus 240, but if you feel like the odds should be higher, then there is value there, and we should give it out as a pick. So we're going Giga Chikadze in the main event. Let's go to this co-main event, which if you went into this year, 2022, thinking that the first co-main event we were going to see was Jake Collier versus Chase Sherman, you were an absolute liar. Nobody knew that was going to happen. However, here's what I will say about both of these guys. They should be motivated. Jake Collier is a former middleweight, moved up to heavyweight. He's 1-2 since moving up to heavyweight, so he's got something to prove here in this division. Chase Sherman, he was with the UFC for a while, exited the UFC, has come back. He is also, if my numbers are correct here, 1-2 since coming back. So the second run not going as Chase Sherman would hope. So both of these guys need a win here on Saturday. Who gets it done, Ian Parker?
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. To me, this is going to be a very exciting co-main event. Look, these two heavyweights, I think they're fighting the right people at the right time in their career. And look, sometimes opportunities happen, and a co-main event is where they land. I see this fight going the distance. I know that sounds ridiculous for heavyweights, but if you look at both of their stats, Both of them are not finishers. Jay Collier is probably the more athletic of the two, fighting. This guy's fought all the way down to 170, and now he's a heavyweight. And Chase Sherman just seems to like getting hit a lot and firing back. He likes to play the rock'em sock'em robot game. Collier is not that type of fighter. He's in and out. So for me, I don't see either guy getting the finish. So our play is going to be that it goes the distance at -150.
Okay, heavyweight fight going the distance in the co-main event. Let's turn our attention to the flyweight division. Brandon Royval from Factory X takes on Rogerio Bontorin. Royval's an interesting one to me, man. I like watching this guy fight. He's got 2 losses in a row, but he had that shoulder injury. Remember when he fought Brandon Moreno, and had he won that fight, he could have been potentially fighting for a championship. Then he lost to Alexandra Pantoja. So some very, very, very tough matchups for this guy. Some bad luck in his last 2 fights. I'm high on him, and I'm interested to see how he's going to start off this year against Rogerio Bontorin, who has shown some flashes, man. He has definitely shown some great flashes of talent and potential. This is kind of a show-me fight. I look at this as a bit of a step up in competition. The odds are in Royval's favor, -170 to +145. Do you like the dog here, or are you thinking that we take the favorite in Royval?
I try to find value in dogs, but if it's not there, it's just not there. And look, Bontorin showed exactly what you said, Brett, flashes. In the fight against Kai Kara France, he was winning that first round, but then we kind of saw something. He was getting a little tired, and he got finished. And, against someone in Royval who is so unpredictable with his striking, I think he'll be the better grappler. Physically, Bontorin may be stronger, which may play into the first round, with Royval, but he's very active off his back. But for me, it's Royval here. I think the year off gave him a time to kind of breathe, get healthy, and be a little bit more poised. I think his first few fights in the UFC, he was just very relentless and a little out of control. I think he peels it back a little bit. He gets the win here, and I think he's just a little bit more patient, which is going to make him a more dangerous fighter.
Okay, yep. I'm high on both of these guys, but I think I'm a little bit higher on the potential of Royval. We will see in a big 125-pound fight. Let's stay in the 125-pound division, but let's go to the women. Caitlyn Chucagian, man, just still going. Still doing what she does, still taking off possible future title contenders for Valentina Shevchenko. She's basically cleaning out the division along with Valentina Shevchenko, taking on Jennifer Maia, who obviously had that chance against Valentina Shevchenko. She lost. She has rebounded since with a win over Jessica Ai. Chucagian, I'm not surprised here, -180. It seems like no one can beat her if they're not the champion. Jennifer Maia coming back at +155. What do you see in this matchup?
I like Chucagian here. I think her style actually plays really well into this fight. Maya's going to try and get on the inside and bull rush. Chucagian's very good on her feet with keeping the distance using that jab. I also think she's the better grappler when she gets on top. So for me, I think Chucagian should be -220 here. So I like her to win straight. If you don't like those odds, follow the rhythm. She's going to win this one by decision. You'll get better odds there. And I think if I'm correct, she'll be the first fighter in history with all 10 of her wins if she wins this one here by decision.
Yes, she does like to go the full distance, but hey, why not? It works out for her most of the time. Let's go to the 155-pound division. Lav Borsho, if he's a Russian, he was on the Contender Series, and the odds makers must think the UFC found something in this guy. He's a -190 favorite against Dakota Bush, who we haven't seen fight since last April, so a little bit of a layoff there for Bush. Talk to me about this matchup, and where are we going with this one?
Again, I like what I saw out of Borshev in the Contender Series. He fought someone that was a strong wrestler with good hands. He showed poise, good takedown defense. He landed a hard shot. He's got finishing ability. I think Bush's time off is going to not be the best thing for him against a guy who could swing like Borshev. So I'm going that way.
Okay, going with the favorite there as well. Let's go to the featherweight division here to close out the main card on ESPN. You got another guy who came off the Contender Series, Joe Anderson Brito. He's 12-2-1, taking on Bill Algeo, who also came off the Contender Series. He fought Brendan Loughnane, and I'm sure a lot of you remember that fight and some of the fallout afterwards. But Brito is a small favorite here, -130, and a kind of a must-win spot for Bill Algeo. He's +110. He is 1-2 so far in the UFC. What do you think of this one, Ian?
Now, I think people are going to take Algeo here because they see a guy with some experience. He's a little bit more seasoned at these dog odds. However, you got to pay attention to the styles here. Algeo spends too much time on his back, has a hard time getting up, and Brito is just an explosive fighter. We haven't seen him in the UFC outside of the series, but what we saw there was tough striking, and when he's on top of you, he makes you pay. I think you're getting a bargain here at -130. Granted, he's probably a little green. this is the time to take advantage, because after this fight, if Brito does what I think he's going to do, he will be a minus 180 or higher in his next fight, and I'm very excited to see this guy go on Saturday night. So I'm going with Brito.
Because I got to say, anybody who's watching this show for the first time is going to say, does this guy ever pick non-favorites? He's just taking everybody who's got a minus next to their name. Ian loves dogs. He's looking for dogs. So if he's staying on the favorites throughout the whole way, it's for a reason. And you heard him mention a few times that the odds maybe should be higher for these favorites. So I'm intrigued by these chalky plays by you, and I'm also intrigued by what your parlay looks like, because I feel like we're going to have a chance to put together a parlay with some of these picks, yeah?
Yeah, you know what? I appreciate you saying that. Look, I would love to find the value of the dogs. If it's not there, we don't force it. But look, we're going to give ourselves plus 191 here on this parlay. We're going to go with Chikadze, Brian Boom Kelleher. Look, originally an underdog, now a favorite against Kevin Croom. I like him in that spot. His wrestling is striking, and not being the short notice guy, I like it even more. And again, I'm high on Borsho. So tie that together, put a bow on it, plus 191. That's our odds right there.
All right, so we got the parlay. Let's take a real quick look at this undercard, Ian. And as I mentioned, obviously a lot of changes. All of these fights are subject to change. We got a 4-fight undercard at the moment. It happens on ESPN Plus. Some familiar names there, some new names there. Ian, I'll kind of open the floor to you. What stands out here, and do you have any plays for us here on the prelim?
Yeah, what stands out for me, and this started off as an underdog, and now it's almost even with Court McGee, is Ramiz Brahimaj. I really like this kid. We've seen a lot of, he's a talented fighter. A win, a loss. The whole thing with the ear situation was pretty gross. But this kid has got excellent skills on the ground. His striking continues to get better. He's going against a veteran, Court McGee, who is, look, he is who he is. He's a guy with an endless gas tank. He's going to hold you against the cage. If he gets you on the ground, he's not going to threaten submissions. He does position over submission. And he's got tight boxing, but again, he's only got one win his last 3 or 4 fights. It was over someone, Claudio Silva, that presented no threats outside of just swinging for the fences. So for me, take advantage of another prospect in Brahimaj. Up a couple days ago, he was plus 115, minus 110. Looks like people are catching on, and they're seeing these lines, and that's why they're moving. So I like Brahimaj in the spot here.
All right, so that's your favorite prelim, but, we like picks here on this show, Ian. So why don't you just go ahead and give us what you're seeing, just real quickly, the picks that you got on the rest of the prelims.
Yeah, I like Holmes over Jamie Pickett. I think that Pickett is someone who just sits on his back foot too much. In his last fight, he did get the win. We saw him put things together. I just think Holmes is the better athlete. I think he's going to be faster. I think he's got more tools. That's always a positive thing. We discussed Brian Kelleher earlier on in the show. I think he's in a good spot to take on someone. Croom is dangerous. We've seen him fight. Nasty guillotine. But Kelleher is well seasoned. He's fought higher level competition. And Croom on short notice, we have no idea what type of shape he's going to be in. I like Kelleher there as part of our parlay. And last but not least, I'm very interested in this TJ Brown-Charles Rosa fight. Rosa's taking this fight on 4 days' notice. TJ Brown is an excellent wrestler with decent striking. Rosa is somebody who just never fights to his potential. We talked about this last time on the show. When he wins, he loses. He wins, he loses. So he lost his last fight. I think he finally broke the trend. I just think in that fight, he's going to spend too much time on his back, and Brown's going to out-wrestle him. So for me, if you want to go TJ Brown, I would say by decision. Rosa's a hard guy to finish.
Those last 2 fights, when you look at them, as you mentioned, the Brown and Rosa fight, then Kelleher, those are a little bit higher odds as well. Do you like any method, or do you think that there's just too much volatility? You want to stay on just a side on that one?
You know what? That's why I threw Brian Kelleher into the parlay. I think there's tremendous value. I'm a fan of his. I think he is someone that definitely has a higher ceiling than where he's been at. It seems like when he finally gets to break through, he falls short, but he does that no-quit attitude, and he's got the skills. He keeps getting better. If he wins that fight, maybe he gets it by TKO. We've seen him finish some tough fighters before. And for TJ Brown, I don't see him winning on the feet. I think he'll out-wrestle Rosa. So for me, TJ Brown by decision. And if you want to go prop with Kelleher by TKO or KO, I don't mind that.
All right. Well, we have gone through all 10 fights on this card. We've gotten your parlay. We've gotten your picks on every single one. Let's get to what we're really here for, Ian. Let's get to the best bets. Again, you finished out last year 3-1. What are you doing with us for the first card of 2022?
Here we go. It started off with a bang. Main event, Giga Chikadze. Even at minus 240, I'm still okay with that number. I think he should be a way higher favorite based on the layoff and the damage Kattar took a year ago. Caitlyn Chucagian, This is her fight to win. This is the perfect stylistic matchup for her. If you're not comfortable at minus 180, take her to win by decision. I believe it's at minus 110. The big boys in the co-main event, it goes to a decision at minus 150. And look, Brandon Royval, you and I both are high on him. I think the year off is actually going to do him a lot of favors. He'll be more poised. And Rahimaj against Court McGee, I really like this kid. I think he gets it done.
All right, man. Well, like I said, we are back after a 4-week hiatus. It's just like riding a bike. I love the confidence. Even though I'm surprised a little bit by all the favorite picks, I think, again, if Ian's taking favorites, it's for a reason. So hopefully we start off 2022 with a bang here in Las Vegas. And then again, next week we've got UFC 270. But first, it is Calvin Kattar versus Giga Chikadze. It's on ESPN, ESPN Plus. Make sure you don't miss it. For Ian Parker and myself, thank you for watching. Hopefully we put some money in your pockets, and we will see you again next week from Anaheim, California. Goodbye.